But when you find your thing, then I think being relentless is a little bit easier because part of the time spent doing it doesn't feel like it's work. Part of that relentless pursuit is enjoyable. Again, I can only share my story. The writing that I do, these podcasts that I do, it's a lot of work, but I love it. It doesn't feel like work. When I go home tonight to edit this, to put it out tomorrow morning, I enjoy that. Hey there, welcome to another episode of Life Design Plus, where we are mastering the art of living your authentic life. Third Thursday of the month, that means it's a solo episode. You see me here in Pursuit Studios. We're getting closer and closer to it being fully ready. You can see J. Cole, Kendrick's back there, some other art. Have a couple more pieces coming, and I'm going to have somebody hang it all up, and then the studio will be ready. I'm excited for that, but that has nothing to do with today's episode. So today's episode is not going to be one where there is an answer provided. I don't think so. Maybe as I get going, we'll find an answer. But I think of this episode more as one that is designed to pose some questions to get you to think. What I've realized and understood on my pursuit, and the more I go down this with Life Design Plus and trying to help people, is sometimes people need answers, and other times people just need to be provoked to think about their own life, their own answers. So today's episode is going to visit a daily note from this week. The daily note was called Qualities of the Great. I think it may have been Monday or Tuesdays. I can't remember when it was. But the premise of the daily note was inspired by a weekend of listening to the Founders Podcast. I've talked about the Founders Podcast a bunch. It is hosted by David Senra, and he himself is a prime example of somebody pursuing and living their authentic life. His podcast is nothing but his reviews of biographies of the world's greatest leaders, CEOs, founders, and he goes through each episode, reads a biography, autobiography, and breaks down and shares with his audience what he took away from it. And I think it's phenomenal because it allows me really quickly, in an hour or even quicker if I speed up the playback, to get a lot of good inspiration from people who have come before me that have done great things, that either I can learn from them, I can see qualities of myself in them to give me more confidence. It's a great podcast. Here I am on my podcast telling you to go listen to another one. Highly recommend Founders. And again, I've said this before, but David Senra, if you ever come across this, I would love to sit down, chop it up, probably 2 episodes. One where we talk about his story, your story, David, and then one where we talk about the qualities of the founders that you see as a common thread. And that's what I want to talk about today, is the common thread that I saw amongst some of the founders, or actually the leaders and entrepreneurs of the weekend that I listened to. So really the episodes I listened to were Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and Jay-Z. And the reason for that was I had Roman in the car with me, and I really want him to pick up on these qualities sooner than I did. And me telling him is not going to work right now. He's 13 years old. He doesn't want to hear what dad has to say. Hopefully he's observing me and what I've learned, and that's helping him. But I figured a podcast, while he's doing something else, he's taking it in, it'll resonate and it'll hit a little bit differently than if I did. So it was Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Jay-Z were the ones we listened to, and they were the ones that inspired me. And what's really cool is on the podcast, Senra will go through, and in the podcast about Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, he will pull in other episodes he's done and connect the characteristics or the scenarios or the views on life to other founders that he's covered in the past. So I love the way that he does that. And truth be told, the episode next week, the book report, is inspired by Senra. Now, I'm not doing biographies because that's his thing, but I want to do books that will help us along on our own pursuit to align our spirit, mind, and body, bring money in when appropriately, and help us all move forward. So with that, let's get into the qualities of the greats, the blog post. So I wrote a synopsis, but the thing I did, I wrote some of the traits that I saw, the qualities of greats that I saw in Kobe, MJ, and Jay-Z. And they were a passion for their craft, unshakable belief in their self, a mindset of if they can do it, then so can I, relentlessness, a desire to learn from others, the ability to recover from failure and learn from it, therefore making it not a failure, a tireless work ethic, and the entrepreneurial spirit. And I'm sure there are more qualities in there. And the ones I left off were the physical ones. Yes, we could talk about Kobe and MJ being 6'6" and physical freaks compared to the normal person. But those are things that that's individual and few and far between. But these characteristics, these traits, I think we can all embody. And before I go into kind of some comments on some of the individual ones, one of the things that I have a question about, I don't have the answer, is do they exhibit these characteristics because that's just who they are, and that led them to basketball and with Kobe, entrepreneurship and investing and writing books and creating a movie. Jay-Z getting out of selling drugs into music. Did they already have these things in there as a part of their DNA that led them to the success they had, or was it because they found their authentic life? They found the thing that they're supposed to be doing. Michael Jordan started out playing baseball. There's a quote in the episode with MJ and Kobe that I love, where Kobe was reaching out to Michael Jordan as he was trying to figure out how to help coach his 12-year-old daughter, and said, what were you doing back in the day at 12? I feel like today's basketball world, it's too complicated. Kids are doing too much. And Michael Jordan told Kobe at age 12 he was playing baseball. Arguably the best, or one of the best, 1A, 1B for me, Kobe and MJ, basketball players ever at age 12 was playing baseball. And we know he played baseball midway through his career, but nonetheless, going back to these traits, did they already have these traits and that led them to finding what they were supposed to be doing? Or did it make this thing that they liked become their passion and become their success? Or did these characteristics develop once they found what it was they were supposed to be doing? If it feeds into my belief that we were all created with a unique purpose, a unique set of gifts that we're supposed to bring to the world, and it's kind of our responsibility to go out and find it. That's the desire of finding your authentic life, and the spirit, mind, body brings you to it. Did they develop those characteristics once they found their authentic life? And the reason I wonder that is, then if that was true for them and these other greats, because these characteristics show up across all of Senra's podcasts, if that is true for them, then could it not be true of us? So maybe you don't see yourself exhibiting all of these traits or any of them today, but maybe you don't exhibit them because you're not where you're supposed to be. And again, I don't have the answer for how you know that, although you probably have a feeling. This is where intuition, this is where the spirit connection, your heart tells you a lot. So if you don't feel like you're where you're supposed to be, you're not, living your purpose, as my friend Tyrone Ross used to say to me, walking in destiny steps. If that's not where you're at, then you probably don't have passion for what you're doing because you're doing something that is not meant for you. I think there is a belief that you can do something, become good at it, and develop a passion. I fully believe that is a possibility. That works for some people, and for others, it's not. For others, they have to know what their passion is and then go follow it. And this is a whole other conversation, maybe another solo episode of like, where does passion lie and what's it supposed to look like and what role does it play in someone's life? Because some people, their passion needs to be their career. Other people, their passion needs to be a side thing, and the career is a means to an end. They kind of like it. They're good at it. It doesn't light them up, but it allows them either the money or the time to go do their passion on the side. And I don't care what anybody tells you when it comes to this stuff, there's no universal answer. There's not one right way to do it. So I'll come back to that because now it's making me remember a post that I responded to this week. So that'll be next month's thing about passion. Where does it lie? And a long rant on that. But coming back to this, if this is true for Kobe and MJ and Jay-Z, then if you find your authentic life and what you're supposed to be doing and you move further and further into it, then maybe these characteristics that the quote-unquote greats have now become characteristics for you. Unshakable belief in yourself. When you're doing the thing that you absolutely love, your passion, and usually your passion is something you're good at, when you're doing that and you're getting better, your confidence can only go up. And if it's something you really enjoy, chances are you're putting in more work doing it. And as you do more work, you get better. And as you get better, your confidence goes up. And eventually you get to a point where you just know that you are good and you don't doubt yourself. And that confidence rises up. And that raises your energy, it raises your levels of consciousness, and it's all a good thing. So I think that if you're doing something you don't enjoy, you're probably not doing it more than you want to. You're probably not giving it your all, which means you may not be getting better. You may just be treading water, holding steady, doing what you need to do to get by, and maybe you don't feel confident because you don't see that improvement. But again, it's not something that you really enjoy because it's not the right thing for you. If they can do it, then so can I mindset. And I think it's really cool because I'm not a great. David Senra is not going to be doing a podcast on me, which is not part of my personal goals. So like, that's no problem. But like, these are characteristics I see in myself and I see in my friends. You know, you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself. Like, all of my 5s, and I have multiple groups of 5s, different like areas of business or in life. They all have this mentality. But I go to the example for me, because I can only give you my examples. I can't give you somebody else's example. But an example for me is when I started doing a podcast, even when I started doing a blog. But I think about the podcast, I had no business starting a podcast on paper. But I saw Patrick O'Shaughnessy was doing it and Invest Like the Best. And I knew he was extremely smart, extremely successful. And I was like, well, if Patrick's doing it, like, why can't I? So I just researched it, watched some videos, set it up, and started doing it. Now, my podcast has never ascended to the levels of Invest Like the Best. That doesn't matter. My mindset was, if he can do it, then so can I. And Jay-Z had this when it came to rap. He saw people in the streets rapping, and he thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think that mentality is a good mentality. It can also be a bad mentality sometimes, because it leads you to doing things that you probably shouldn't waste your time on because you think you can do it. So you want to go try it. But if they can do it, so can I. That's a mindset that I think that comes with confidence again. And I don't know if you have to have the confidence before you can have that mindset, or you can just naturally have that mindset. But that is a mindset. Everybody had it. You look at Kobe. If Michael can do these things, then so can I. Now, he reached out to Michael. They formed a great friendship. Michael mentored him. But there was a point where Kobe talks about when he's new to the league, and he looked at the way the other guys in the league practiced. And he said, once they got to a certain point of making money and getting to a certain contract, they got comfortable and they quit practicing hard. And then that was the light bulb moment for Kobe of like, well, that's not my DNA. I'm going to practice hard no matter what. And no wonder Michael Jordan had so many championships, because all these other guys relaxed and Michael kept going. So if Michael can do it, so can I, was Kobe's mentality. I don't know who Michael's was. If they can do it, so can I. I feel like he was more of a trailblazer. I mean, there's Dr. J and some other basketball players out there that he modeled himself after, but that I never have heard of the if they can do it, so can I type of thing for Michael Jordan. But Kobe definitely, Jay-Z definitely. Relentlessness. This is just the inability to surrender. And I think with all of these things, and we look at the lives of Kobe and MJ and Jay-Z, and there are probably things that they might want to go back and change through their life, because sometimes these traits can tip to one end of the spectrum, and they can actually cause problems with relationships and friendships, and you become more of a solo person rather than a group of people because you're so different than everybody else. So while I talk about these traits, they are good traits to have. I would much rather have them than not, but we also want to make sure we keep them in check, that they don't get too far out of whack, because I do think they can cause problems. If they can do it, so can I. You end up doing too many things, pulling you away from the things that you're supposed to be doing because you think you can do everything. They can get to be too much. Relentlessness can be just, sometimes you do need to pivot. Sometimes you do need to admit that, okay, this isn't what I thought it was. I need to change and quit doing it, and not viewing it as giving it up. Just knowing that sometimes you have to change the path. But you also are not going to achieve your full potential. Strip away being a great. You're not going to achieve your full potential without being able to relentlessly pursue what it is that you want. And again, going back to being relentless requires you to put in a lot of effort, spend a lot of time, make some sacrifices. You're not going to be relentless for something you don't care about. So the thing that you're pursuing in your life, if it is not something that you care about, it's not aligned with your authentic self, it's not what you're meant to be doing, it's hard to be relentless. But when you find your thing, then I think being relentless is a little bit easier, because part of the time spent doing it doesn't feel like it's work. Part of that relentless pursuit is enjoyable. Again, I can only share my story. The writing that I do, these podcasts that I do, it's a lot of work, but I love it. It doesn't feel like work. When I go home tonight to edit this, to put it out tomorrow morning, I enjoy that. I enjoy every day getting up, writing my daily note. I want to do more of it. So you look at Jay-Z, once he found out about rapping, and again, this is summarizing Senra's work, so I'm not trying to take the credit for this. I took it from David, and he took it from Decoded, which is a book over there that maybe one day I'll dive into and pull some pursuit stuff out of it. But Jay-Z started rapping when he was 12. And I love this part of the episode because Senra points out that his first album didn't drop until he was like 24 or 26. It's a classic. So Reasonable Doubt drops. It's a classic. Everybody's like, oh, like this dude's an overnight success. No, Jay-Z was rapping relentlessly every day, any free moment he had for 12 to 14 years. I need to memorize the number, but a long time. But he enjoyed it. He loved it. It was his passion. It was the thing he was supposed to do. If it wasn't the thing he was supposed to do, then he wouldn't be the billionaire that he is today with all of the success. You don't get to do that if you're doing something that's not meant for you because of all of the hard work, all of the trials, all the tribulations, all of the failure that comes along. You're not going to continue to relentlessly pursue it if you don't love it and it's not your passion. So again, it's easy to be relentless when you're doing the thing you were meant to do. It's your job to figure out what that is. Desire to learn from others, realizing that we can't do it all on our own. Listening to founders is one way. That's one way David Senra learns from the greats before him, and he talks about all the time, is reading these biographies. Kobe learned from Michael. Jay-Z learned from Big Daddy Kane. And then they to pay it forward. So I think that what I would add to this is the desire to learn from others, but also the understanding of the responsibility of teaching others as well. You can't get this information, you can't have this knowledge and then not share it with others. How you share it may be different. It may be mentorship, it may be podcasts, it may be writing, but the desire to learn from others, because you can shorten up your learning curve if you can learn from somebody else's journey. And you don't necessarily, learning from others doesn't mean mimicking and copying everything they did. It means learning their lessons and applying it to the pursuit that you're going on, applying it to your life. So a desire to learn from others. You don't know everything. It's impossible for us to know everything. Others have been before us. Learn from them. And then once you learn and you know and you get to a certain point, don't hoard that information. And Michael Jordan shared all of his secrets with Kobe. And Michael Jordan is one of the most competitive people in the world. Didn't hurt that Michael was sharing it on his way out of the league, so he wasn't sharing his trade secrets with Kobe and then having to battle him one-on-one, but he shared his secrets. And Kobe was sharing his secrets with tons of younger players in the NBA and up and coming in high school. It's your obligation that once you learn something that is unique to you and you were meant to learn, to share it with the world. Ability to recover from failure and learn from it, part of that relentlessness. There is no such thing as a failure, except maybe if you don't achieve your goal and you learn nothing from it, then maybe that's a failure. But in every shortfall, not getting to the point that you want to get to, there is a learning lesson in it. And the greats, Michael, Kobe, Jay-Z that I listened to over the weekend, they all had areas where they came up short. Jay-Z had albums that weren't necessarily the greatest. He had business deals that weren't necessarily the greatest. Kobe, in his early years, airballed 4 shots late in a game that cost them basically moving along in the playoffs. There are all these failures that most individuals give up on. I'm done. But when you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing, you're living your authentic life, the failure is a learning opportunity, and it's something you want so badly that you're not going to give it up. So you don't want to fail, you don't want to come up short, but you're also not afraid to, because you know you're going to learn from it that's going to help you the next time you're in that situation. And if it came to it towards the end of his career, there's nobody I want the ball in his hands more than Kobe Bryant. Michael Jordan right there with him, but they weren't at the same time. But Kobe went from airballing 4 big shots as an 18-year-old, maybe 19-year-old, to being the go-to guy who delivered multiple times with big shots late in the game to win games. Because he wasn't willing to give up. He learned that he needed to get stronger, so he wasn't too tired. That's why he missed. His legs were too tired to get enough lift to get the ball to the goal. So he got stronger. That was no longer a problem and made him one of the greats. You're not going to recover from a failure or a shortfall quickly with learning if you don't care about what it is you're pursuing. Again, why it's so important to find what it is you're supposed to be doing, to live your authentic life, because then you can exhibit these characteristics. And I believe the reason all of these greats, the 3 I've talked about today, the other ones on Senra's, is that they were able to have these characteristics because they found their thing. And that is what allowed them to be great. And great, to me, doesn't have to be billion-dollar person. It doesn't have to be a huge business. Great is just you're the best at what it is you do, and we need levels of great at all ranges. So it's not, the benchmark is not how much money did you make, how many things did you sell, how many followers do you have. The benchmark is there anybody better at what it is that you do? And maybe your thing doesn't have to be a global phenomenon that everybody knows about. All right, tireless work ethic Same thing. You're not going to be tireless. You're not going to work hard on something you don't care about. There's no argument there. So I'll skip over that one. That's obvious. I won't skip over that. You look at Kobe working out at 2 and 3 in the morning, and the Redeem team, Carmelo and LeBron and Dwayne Wade talk about getting into the hotel, for the first night there, and they're getting in at like 4 in the morning, and Kobe's on his way to go work out. And the cool thing about it is, and why the Redeem team ended up being good, that's the team that was put together to get the gold back into America's hands for basketball in the Olympics, was before long, everybody else started joining Kobe early mornings. Most people did. I think Carmelo said he wasn't getting up at 4, but most of them started working out with Kobe in the morning. And then that's where that transfer of knowledge was happening between Kobe and LeBron and Kobe and Dwayne Wade and the other guys that showed up. And then finally, the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think of the entrepreneurial spirit as, yes, maybe starting businesses, being a good investor, seeing opportunities, but I really think anybody can exhibit an entrepreneurial spirit. It's one of the characteristics I didn't have growing up, or I didn't know was there. It was buried. And I hope that the boys, Roman and Leo and Silas, find it at an earlier age and exhibit it. I could care less if they ever start a business. But the entrepreneurial spirit is somebody who, I think it is relentless. But I also think it is somebody who is able to identify problems or things they don't like, and they want to go do something about it rather than complain about it. Maybe that's building a new business. Maybe that's thinking about a problem from a creative way, solving it differently. Entrepreneurial doesn't, in my mind, entrepreneurial does not mean you have to build something necessarily. It means that you are a creative thinker. You think outside the box, and you can solve problems in a unique way because you're not stuck inside of what the box you've been placed in. So, all of those 3 guys we listened to on the weekend all started other businesses. Michael's was more along the lines of staying with Nike and buying, basketball teams and getting into racing. But, Kobe was a big time investor. He invested in Body Armor and some other areas. He was working on creating his own shoe away from Nike when he passed away. Jay-Z has started plenty of businesses, from clothing brands to alcohol to other things. They all saw opportunities to take what it was that they were doing and build something new. One of my favorite stories was when the reason Jay-Z started Rocawear. And the reason he started Rocawear is the reason that you will only see me wearing my brand or brands of my friends, because his realization was he's on stage wearing another brand. I think it was Iceberg they talked about. And before long, he saw a bunch of people in his shows, in the crowd, wearing that brand. And that brand didn't want to do any type of equity deal or compensation for it. So basically, it was free marketing. And Jay-Z said, well, forget that. I'm going to make my own brand, and I'm going to wear it on stage, and then everybody will wear what I'm wearing, and it will be my brand. Not everybody sees that. Some people might be on stage just looking out there, not connecting the dots to say, hey, everybody's wearing what I'm wearing, and this business is benefiting off of the awareness I'm bringing to it. I should be compensated for it, which is one entrepreneurial thought. You don't, again, have to start the clothing line. The entrepreneur says, hey, I'm bringing money to you. Let's work out a deal to where I'm compensated for it, and I'll bring even more attention to it. But the entrepreneur doesn't stop at a no. All right, Iceberg, your loss, my gain. Rocawear is here, and now I'm going to build this brand off of my back, and it's going to be all for me and my family and so forth. So I don't want you to think you have to be an entrepreneur and start a business, but I think that, again, when you are operating in a space doing what it is you're supposed to be doing, and you have the greatest strengths for it, your talents line up with it, you're going to see ways around obstacles. And sometimes ways around obstacles require creativity and an entrepreneurial spirit. All of the greats had it. Maybe there's a bias in the podcast I'm listening to, since it's a lot of founders, a lot of CEOs, but I still think that entrepreneurial spirit, the creative thinking, the inability to stop at the first roadblock is something that is a common characteristic of all these greats. And I think it is something that you develop when you are operating in your authentic life. It all comes back to the authentic life, why I'm so obsessed with it. I think everybody's lives get better when we are all operating in our authentic lives, being our authentic self, and doing what it is that we are supposed to be doing, why we were created. It's up to us to figure out what it is. So again, I don't have answers for you as I wrap this up. I can't tell you exactly how to develop those, other than I think it becomes a lot easier to develop those characteristics of those people you might look up to when you are operating in the same space they were. And they were operating in the space of their authentic life, doing the thing that they were best at, that no one else could do better than them, which allowed them to develop the confidence, to be relentless, to have tireless work ethic, all the way down the list of those characteristics. So I wish I had the answer for you other than look at what you're doing today. How many of those characteristics do you exhibit? What are some other characteristics of the greats that you look up to? What do they exhibit? And why don't you exhibit more, or why don't you exhibit them in a greater way? And only you can answer those. And then once you answer those, you can begin to go to work about, okay, well, how do I increase these characteristics? How do I increase the strength of them? How do I increase the number of them? What are the things that I would do that would allow me to feel that way, to operate that way? And then go start doing those. And I think do them in a small way. Introduce it in a small way. See how it goes. Let it build. And then you'll have a better idea of what it's supposed to look like. Because again, going back to my little rant earlier about passion, it doesn't have to be your career. It might be something smaller. But only you are going to know. And only you can determine for you how it fits. So go check out the Founders Podcast. I definitely recommend the Kobe episodes, the Michael Jordan episodes, the Jay-Z episode, but he's covered so many greats across all different businesses, all different sectors of the markets, different time periods. Like they're great. And think about those characteristics that you hear in those episodes that you want to exhibit, and what are the things you need to bring into your life or the changes you need to make to allow you to exhibit those characteristics as well. And I believe that since those characteristics are found across all these greats, great things will happen for you as well. So that's it for this week. I want to thank you for joining in, remind you to subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Daily Notes. Eventually, these hoodies that I'm only going to be wearing will eventually come to the market. They'll be available for people to get. Small drops. You will only know when those drops happen if you are on the Daily Note email or the Weekly Note email. I'm only going to run these sales through the emails because I want to reward the people who are closest to me, which is the email subscribers. So if you ever think you might want one, a hat, a hoodie, a t-shirt, whatever else I might create in the future, better make sure you're on the Daily Note. And while you wait for those things to drop, you get the Daily Note, a little of inspiration every day, something to think about to help you as you pursue your authentic life, find that alignment of spirit, mind, and body, and ultimately, walk in the steps that you're supposed to walk in. Have a great day. I thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on my pursuit. It's an honor to be a part of yours, and let's keep pursuing.